Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Perez.
And I'm Wesley Long.
And we're bringing you a fresh new take on disaster preparedness.
Welcome to Disaster Class.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Disaster Class. I'm Jason Perez.
And I'm Wesley Long.
And you know what that means, Wesley.
Class is in session.
Class is in session. Well, before we get into this episode, we just wanted to give a big shout out to you guys, our listeners, because you're awesome, and we really want to thank you for the support that you've given us. So please keep it coming. Our goal is really to help as many people as possible with these really important life-saving concepts. And to do that, raising awareness is really the key. Because the more people we can reach and empower, the better off our communities are going to be. So we're going to be asking for your help in raising awareness. And we're asking that you share this podcast with your friends and family.
Yeah. In fact, I wonder if we can kick it up a notch. You know, let's
kick it up a notch.
Yeah, man. Let's make it interesting, right?
I'm always down to make it interesting.
Please, right? Why not?
Let's do it.
So to help us spread the word, we're hoping that you can tag 2 friends, just 2. That's not a lot to ask, and I think most of us have more than 2 friends on social media, right? So tag 2 on social media, and just announce that the show is coming every episode. Like, that's really, really helpful for us, just to let people know that it's available. There's a new fresh episode, a new take, something for them to consume and enjoy. Very, very helpful for us. So for every 2 friends that you tag, you will get 1 entry into a raffle to win a free virtual community emergency planning class taught by, yours
Jason, truly.
Yeah, your favorite podcast hosts, Jason and myself. And it'll be for you and an additional 10 of your friends. So in value, that's over like $600, probably $650.
I think it's more than that. Yeah,
probably even more than that. And this is, a live interactive course taught by your favorite podcast hosts.
Yep. So it's and to really sound down that point, it's live, so you get to interact with us, ask questions, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So whenever we post the social media post announcing this episode, tag 2 of your friends on that post, and like Wesley said, for each of those 2 friends, you're going to get an entry. So that sounds like a really cool prize, Wesley.
Should be fun. And valuable.
Right. So happy tagging.
Yeah.
And check the post for instructions. We'll give you more details as it comes. And then we're also going to announce the winner on social media as well. So
sweet.
So now let's kind of dive into this episode.
Yeah.
So now in an emergency and disaster services, we're concerned a lot with protecting what we call vulnerable and at-risk populations.
Absolutely.
Now, these are specific demographics of people that may have a higher risk of being negatively impacted by a hazard. Now, one of those populations is children. Children are more susceptible to disaster risk because they're still developing physically and mentally, and obviously they can't care for themselves the same way that we can as adults. However, kids are really smart, and they can absorb a lot of information, and they can really grasp many of these important concepts at a young age and hold on to them. And when they do that, it's usually better than us as adults.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, better than adults, because that is the key, and it is so true. You're going to hear from a special guest today whose mission is really specifically that, is to help children learn these important skills and concepts so they can grow up empowered and make better choices later in life. Now, unfortunately, at the time we were filming this, our area was hit by a major ice storm. So we decided to mitigate our risk and not go into the studio. But instead we did a safe thing, and we filmed and recorded via Zoom with her.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, like that?
I did like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that concludes Homeroom. You know what to look forward to. When we come back, we're going to hear from our special guest, so don't go anywhere. When you need an emergency plan, you need Doberman Emergency Management. Whether you're buying a home and want to know about your local hazards, or you're a professional needing additional support, Doberman Emergency Management can help. Visit DobermanEMG.com today to learn more. All right, everybody, welcome back to Disaster Class. We have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Heather Beal. She is an author, an emergency manager, an innovator, and just a kind-hearted person. And we're really excited to have her on the show today. Heather, welcome to Disaster Class.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
We're excited to have you. So I'm going to start by just taking a little stab of what I know about you, summarizing some of your background. So please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this information. But so you served in the Navy for over 20 years. You're a certified emergency manager. You have 4 master's degrees and a PhD in emergency management. That's correct, right?
That's correct.
I just for our listeners, I had to say it because she's too modest to talk about her achievements, which is it's incredible the amount of experience that you have. So my first question, how did you end up on this journey? How did you end up where you are today?
It is a rather odd journey. I will have to admit that. So I was in the military, like you said, for 23 years. I started as a Chinese linguist, then got commissioned and worked in, we called it cryptology, then information warfare, cyber warfare. But the cool part is by the end, I was doing a lot of crisis planning and exercise planning and what do we do if kind of stuff. And I'd always been fascinated with learning, started with conflict resolution, political science, etc. And I found emergency management. I'm like, ooh, yes, I can make a difference here. So it's kind of funny. I went from planning to protect our guys from the bad guys to planning to protect kiddos from whatever else is out there to get them. Same skills, just a little different, configuring.
Wow, different application. Nice. Nice. So then in getting your doctorate, I think you did, if I'm correct, you did your dissertation in childcare recovery, right? Why did you choose that topic?
So after I started learning about emergency management, it was right before I got out of the military. My daughter was young. My son wasn't born yet, of course, and she was in childcare. And I started to learn about what are we doing for kids and preparing them. And then I learned that we have something for K through 12, but no one was looking at childcare. Childcare is considered a business, and for recovery purposes, it is a small business most of the time. So I started asking the question, well, who's preparing my kids? I was in the active duty. My husband was active duty. My daughter was there a while, and later on my son too. And what do they know? I mean, they are the first responders for our kids if something happens, and we are not preparing them in the way we should. So I decided I wanted to try and start to bridge that gap.
Nice.
Yeah,
beautiful.
It's a lot of the trust that we put in our educators, those in childcare. Yeah, we're entrusting them with our children,
and they love our children. It's just they don't always know what they don't know. They're doing whatever checklist they've got. They think they're good to go. They haven't been given the tools to succeed, and that's just a risk I'm not willing to take.
Exactly. Nice. So the next question I have, I guess, is kind of a 2-part question. Because a lot of what you're doing now is actually educating the children themselves on some of these really important topics. Why do you feel it's important to educate children about disaster risk reduction? And do you feel that public education is doing a good job at tackling those subjects?
That's actually a lot of questions all in one, but
it is a lot. It is a lot. Well, let's start with the first part. Why do you think it's important that children know these topics?
Well, that's children. If we can get to the kids, we can get to everyone else in the family. Too often, emergency management, I see our outreach folks going after the adults, planning these different sessions, and you get 6 wonderful adults there that want to learn more, want to do something. Now, if you get to the kids, it's a whole different world. And when my daughter was little, we used to watch Daniel Tiger, and I think I've done this in my things, but they have songs, and it's funny, but the kids remember, like, okay, I'm going to do it. If you have to go potty, stop and go right away. Every one of these little songs, it sticks in their head. They learn what to do. Now, I tried, my daughter was 3. My son was, less than a year old. we lived in Maryland, and there was a storm outside, and there was a tornado watch. And I'm like, do I tell my daughter or not that we might have to go downstairs? What do we do? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell her. Yeah, bedtime with thunder and lightning. I try to explain what a tornado watch is and how we might have to go downstairs. It did not end well. So I'm like, okay, dummy. So I started looking for what can I get for her to teach her about these things? And there wasn't anything. I couldn't find anything out there. And I realized that if we could find the things and have the conversation on a blue sky day, they would know what to do. They know what fire drills are. When's the last time you've heard of, multiple fatalities at a childcare or a school in a fire? There's not, because kids know what to do. My son used to complain about how loud it is, and I'm with him. It hurts my ears too. However, he knows what to do to be safe. And if we can just normalize that, what to do if, man, wouldn't we just all be better off? Because the kids will know what to do, and it puts them in charge. It gives them a little bit of control in a situation where very little control is available. They can keep themselves safe and help their friends and help their teacher. And everyone wins.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it takes the fear factor out of it too. It's uncovering the danger and really being able for them to process it. And it's so true because, so many things that we learn as children, like you said, the perfect examples of fire drill. We all know, okay, you hear the alarm, you get out the building and you leave. It's something that's instilled into us. And that's I feel like we're on a very similar path, because with us doing our community education program, it's harder to get to the adults because they're already kind of set in their ways. And sometimes they don't always necessarily understand why they should be doing something. But if you get them while they're young, it's so easy. It's much easier to instill these really life-saving concepts into them. So
if you look at it from a sports perspective too, my daughter does gymnastics now, my son does too, but if I try to do a cartwheel at my age, it would not be pretty. Okay. But she's doing back walkovers and cartwheels and stuff on the balance beam. Yep. You get to the kids when they're young, when they can learn the stuff. And you know what, if you get to them, they're going to educate everyone else in the family. Mommy, you're not doing it right. Teacher said to do this. Okay, dear, sorry. Yeah, you've got everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. That's such I think a powerful, really important thing. And just real kudos for taking that on, because I know it's a big project. And so kind of going into the second part of what I was talking about, these are really important concepts and that we should be instilling into our children. How do you feel public education is doing with this?
Well, I think there's always room for improvement. I know REMS is a great resource out there, and the public schools are doing better. I know I see, depending on the location, more tornado drills, earthquake, the great shakeout. We do a little bit with that, but I don't think we're anywhere near where we could be with it. I remember in high school getting home ec class, and I'd argue people still need to learn how to boil water for eggs, but they also need to know how to handle stuff. What would you do if kind of classes? You don't always have the answers, but teaching kids how to think critically and how to act in a situation, that's the skill that I don't think that they're getting at all, either at home or in schools. So there's lots of room for improvement there.
Yeah, no, I think we would agree. That's why we have a community outreach program, right? We're in the trenches with you, so to speak. So it looks like you have come up with a couple of solutions, some specific solutions to solve this problem, to help educate children about disaster risk, right? What they can do, how to minimize that. So let's start with Train for Safety. You authored several children's books. Tell us about that.
So it kind of goes back to my daughter and trying to explain a tornado and failing miserably or doing a really good job of scaring her. So yeah, not my proudest mommy moment for sure. But I started looking, there's a lot of stuff out there science wise. And I think, I love learning about weather stuff. It's fascinating, but what do kids know? They need to know about, what do I do to be safe? Making a smart choice. And so I started creating the books that talk about, okay, this is what it is, but this is what you can do to be safe. We don't focus on any of the scary parts. I mean, we know something bad would happen if there was a 9.0 earthquake out here. But I'm going to tell them, okay, if it happens, you get under the table, you get your friends under the table, and then wait for teacher to tell you what to do next, but you try and help each other. I mean, my daughter went through we called it the line leader phase. Always want to be at the front of the line, always want to be the one that opened the door, always want to be first to do, pick whatever it is. Well, you get the kids at that age and they want to be first to make a difference. Oh my goodness, we all win. One of my favorite stories, and I know I've told you guys this, but I'm going to tell you again because it's one of my favorites, is Tilly Smith, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. She was 10 years old. Oh. She was on vacation with her mom and dad and little sister in Thailand. And she saw the water doing something weird. It was all frothy, it was receding. And now we all know, oh, tsunami. Well, that wasn't really thought of so much back then. She'd had a geography lesson and her teacher told her about it. And she's trying to convince mom and dad, Mom, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. There's going to be a tsunami. And they're like, no, there's not. They did not know anything about that earthquake that had happened in Indonesia. They never felt it in Thailand. So mom finally said, okay, just take the kids back up to the pool. I'm going down to the beach. And so she just kept it up with dad going, Dad, something's wrong. It's going to happen. And so he went to the pool guard and said, hey, I know this sounds crazy. My daughter's convinced there's going to be a tsunami. That's when they found out about the earthquake. The two men looked at each other and they started hollering for everyone to come back in from the beach. That girl saved hundreds of lives because she knew what to do. She knew something was wrong. And that kind of empowerment is exactly what we're talking about. It's going to bring our kids home to us.
Yeah. That's such an amazing. I was actually just recently reading over that example again. I think it was, if I may be mistaken, but I think it was like that beach was the only one that didn't have reported fatalities or something like that. Like she saved so many lives that day. It's just an incredible and inspiring example, and a perfect example of why educating our kids is so important. So excellent. Like we what you're doing is amazing. We really love it. Besides your books, which are awesome, we'll talk about them. We'll give some little more plugs for them later. Don't worry. But you also started a non-for-profit organization, Blocks. Can you tell us a little bit about what Blocks is and what it's all about?
Oh, thanks. So Blocks is actually an acronym. It stands for Building Links Between Offices of Emergency Management, Childcare, and the Community for Kids Safety. Again, just tying together those entities. So we focus on, our mission is to help prepare children and individuals to face and recover from disaster. So we start focusing with the child cares, but we're also available to help children in general. Interesting thing people don't think about, and it's still a hard one to get to, is a lot of places don't have enough childcare. So there's nannies or there's babysitters. And I know I've told the babysitter, make sure here's my number to call if something's wrong or this, that, the other, but I've probably never run her through all of the what ifs that I should. And I know when I was babysitting, when I was a little girl, I never got told to think about any of those kind of crazy things. Like if there's a tornado or anything, we just, okay, the mac and cheese is over here and call me if you have a problem. That was the extent to what we got. But our kids are with people that aren't professional, trained in these things, and we're not preparing them. So we've got to prepare our kids, and we've got to better prepare those individuals taking care of the kids. Because like I said, they love children. That's what they're doing it. But they're just not being given the tools to help take care of themselves. And I have to tell my childcare providers when I go in there and do earthquake training, you have to get into the table too. You might not be able to get every child under the table, but you need to get there too and help as many as you can, because if something happens to you, no one else is coming.
One more direction. Yep.
It's going to be a while before anyone gets there. You have to protect yourself as well. And that's a hard concept for them to get in, because their job is to protect everyone else. Right. But they're our first responders.
Yep, the first line, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you've had a lot of experience. So whether it's the books that you've created, the curricula that you've created, how have you found the children themselves, the actual children, are responding to these concepts in this training?
They love it. They love being able to do something, mm-hmm. and be able to say they know how to do it, and they can show other people how to do it. And it's been so fun. Is after I just in the trainings that you never know what the response is. We usually get the thank you, Miss Heathers, or whatever it is that the teachers say. But I've had I call them avalanche hugs, where everyone just piled on and wanted to give a hug, or I've gotten little pictures and thank you cards afterwards. And the best part is when a mom will write something or say, hey, my daughter told me about this, that she really loved the book and we read it 3 times, and now they know what to do at home. And a lot of the childcare providers, they don't realize how unprepared they are. And nobody is going into their place of work and helping prepare them in their own special way. There's all kinds of stuff online. You can look at it, but having someone take the time to go show up in their home or their place of work, it makes such a big difference. And I love being able to be part of that.
Nice. The
That's
empowerment of the kids. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Awesome. In the episode that in our episode that we were doing earlier, the subject we were talking about with our listeners was mitigation, right? The importance of hazard mitigation, recognizing what the impacts are going to be, and then doing something to be able to prevent or minimize the impacts, right? And I think in terms, this goes hand in hand. The ultimate mitigation strategy is first and foremost education, right? Empowering the people to be able to understand these concepts and to be able to make better informed decisions on how to prepare themselves. And starting this at such a young age is it's crucial, it's vital. But thank you so much, Heather, for coming on Disaster Class. We think you're doing just incredible work. Really impressed with the stuff you've been doing. We're also happy to announce to our listeners that you can now purchase Heather's books on thereadinesslab.com. But Heather, where else can people go to connect with you, to stay in touch with you?
So they can go to the trainforsafety.com website, or they can go out. The books are available online, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, wherever you find it. You go find your normal books. Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. And oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled to be part of what you guys are doing, because it's about getting to everyone out there and trying to make a difference. One person at a time. That's how we do it.
That's it. We agree. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
Disaster Class is brought to you by Instinct Ready, whose mission is to educate, prepare, and equip individuals, households, and families for disasters through quality education and premium products. Use promo code DISASTERClass at instinctready.com for 10% off site-wide.
Well, Wesley, it was really nice to hear from Heather. She's just an awesome person, and she's tackling a really, really big project. But it's very much needed.
Oh, needed? Absolutely. And I love her approach to it.
Yeah, definitely a great approach. Well, before we conclude this episode of Disaster Class, as always, there's homework.
Yes, there is. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to Disaster Class. Leave us a 5-star rating. Give us a thumbs up and comment about something, that you learned or appreciated from this episode.
Yeah. And if you have a question, you have a preparedness tip, a disaster story to share, send us an email at disasterclass@instinctready.com. Drop us a message on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And doing so will put you in the running to be featured on the show and win some cool stuff. So thank you guys so much for listening to Disaster Class. Stay educated, stay prepared, stay equipped. We'll see you next time.